NBA 2017-18 season predictions projecting all 6 divisions and the playoffs. Sure, the 2017-18 NBA season gets underway Tuesday, as the Cleveland Cavaliers host the Boston Celtics. The Golden State Warriors then get their rings before then play the Houston Rockets. But do you really want to sit through the next 8 months, or would you rather just know what is going to happen today? Here are the Post's projections for how the season will play out, from each division's projected finishing order to the 8 playoff teams in each conference to how the postseason will go, right up to, and through, the NBA Finals. Will the Warriors and Cavaliers meet again? Will someone get in the way of an unprecedented 4th straight showdown? Here are our answers. Teams listed in order of predicted finish, equals playoff berth. Atlantic Division: Boston Celtics, Toronto Raptors, Philadelphia 76ers, Brooklyn Nets, New York Knicks. Unlike prior years, the Celtics are the clear favorites to win the division this season. And while Toronto is likely to take at least a partial step back from where it has been the last few seasons, it should easily still have enough to make the playoffs. The intrigue comes after that, with the Sixers tapped by many to be a playoff team this season. The expectation here, though, is they are the first team out, while the Nets will be better than they've been, though still not a playoff team either. The Knicks, on the other hand, should be truly dreadful, thanks to arguably the worst point guard situation in the NBA. Central Division: Cleveland Cavaliers, Milwaukee Bucks, Detroit Pistons, Indiana Pacers, Chicago Bulls. The Cavaliers have LeBron James. End of analysis. The Bucks could push for a top 4 seed in the East this season behind a potential MVP season for Giannis Antetokounmpo, but they'll be a comfortable playoff team regardless. The Pistons could go a variety of directions, but they should be able to bounce back from last year's disappointment and make it back to the playoffs. Indiana will likely struggle mightily post Paul George, but they'll be far ahead of the Bulls, who should be the NBA's worst team. Southeast Division: Washington Wizards, Miami Heat, Charlotte Hornets, Orlando Magic, Atlanta Hawks. Washington should be the clear favorite in this division, and could push for a top 2 seed if the Wizards can survive Markieff Morris's early season absence. The Heat was one of the revelations of last season, going 11-30 before hitting a 30-11 stride in the second half. Miami's depth should get the team back in the playoffs this season. Ditto for Charlotte, which should benefit from the arrival of Dwight Howard to complement Cody Zeller in the paint. Both the Magic and the Hawks have new front offices this season, and will thus spend the season waiting to see if ping-pong balls bounce in their direction next spring. Southwest Division: Houston Rockets, San Antonio Spurs, Memphis Grizzlies, New Orleans Pelicans, Dallas Mavericks. With the arrival of Chris Paul, the Rockets may find a way to be even more explosive this season than last year. San Antonio may take a dip with an aging roster and Kawhi Leonard battling health issues, but should still be a mid-tier playoff team at worst. The Grizzlies can still be a playoff team if they get at least 75 games from both Mike Conley and Marc Gasol, but they have no margin for error in the brutal West. The Pelicans have Anthony Davis, DeMarcus Cousins and Jrue Holiday, but little else, and that could spell trouble for a team that needs to be successful. Dallas is likely to struggle, but all that matters for the Mavericks is the development of Dennis Smith Jr., the team's top rookie. Northwest Division: Oklahoma City Thunder, Minnesota Timberwolves, Denver Nuggets, Portland Trail Blazers, Utah Jazz. After adding Carmelo Anthony and Paul George, Oklahoma City has a chance to get back to the conference finals, something that was unthinkable as recently as 6 months ago, and should win the deepest division in basketball. Minnesota should finally break its 14-year playoff drought after making a big trade of its own to nab Jimmy Butler. Denver has one of the league's most exciting young teams, led by Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray, plus it added Paul Millsap. Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum are well-known studs in Portland, but it is just Yusuf Nurkic that holds the key to the Trail Blazers getting farther than a first-round exit in the playoffs. Utah lost Gordon Hayward, but can still make the playoffs behind possibly the league's best defense. Pacific Division: Golden State Warriors, Los Angeles Clippers, Sacramento Kings, Phoenix Suns, Los Angeles Lakers. Golden State will obviously make the playoffs. Many expect the Clippers to, but the thought here is the injury issues that annually befall Blake Griffin and Danilo Gallinari will be too much to overcome. The Kings, Suns, and Lakers, meanwhile, are all focused on rebuilding around young talent, and will absorb a multitude of losses this season. Eastern Conference Playoff Projection: 1. Cleveland Cavaliers 2. Washington Wizards 3. Boston Celtics 4. Miami Heat 5. Milwaukee Bucks 6. Toronto Raptors 7. Charlotte Hornets 8. Detroit Pistons. The Cavaliers should be the East's best team, but there could be a real battle for second. The guess here is Washington gets the edge, thanks in part to Boston essentially having to figure out an entirely new team this season. And while the Philadelphia 76ers have been lauded by many as a strong possibility to make the playoffs, it seems likely the young Sixers are too raw and inexperienced to make the necessary leap, leaving essentially the other 5 teams trying to win in the East, Miami, Milwaukee, Toronto, Charlotte and Detroit, for the final 5 playoff spots. Second round: 1. Cleveland Cavaliers 2. Washington Wizards 3. Boston Celtics 5. Milwaukee Bucks. The Cavs, Wizards and Celtics all advance without much trouble, but in a slobberknocker of a series between the Heat and Bucks, Antetokounmpo officially arrives and leads a team into the second round for the first time. That sets up a juicy series against LeBron James and Cleveland, but Milwaukee is nowhere near ready for the task of knocking off the 3-time defending East champions. Meanwhile, Washington not only exacts some revenge on Boston in the Eastern Conference semifinals by winning Game 7 at home, but the Wizards finally break the curse that's haunted DC and becomes the city's first conference finalist in 2 decades. Conference Finals: 1. Cleveland Cavaliers 2. Washington Wizards. John Wall and Bradley Beal haven't been shy about wanting the Cavaliers. Now they have their chance. But while the Wizards were able to shed the curse and get this far, they still aren't on a level in which they can take out James, who beats Washington in a playoff series for the 4th time in his career, though the first time in a decade. Western Conference Playoff Projection: 1. Golden State Warriors 2. Houston Rockets 3. Oklahoma City Thunder 4. Minnesota Timberwolves 5. San Antonio Spurs 6. Denver Nuggets 7. Portland Trail Blazers 8. Utah Jazz. The Warriors, Rockets and Thunder are all expected to be in the top half of the West playoff picture, but the surprise here is that the Timberwolves stay ahead of San Antonio for 4th, setting up an intriguing first-round battle between the young Minnesota team and the veteran Spurs. Denver will live up to its youthful potential and get into the playoffs for the first time in 5 seasons, while both Portland and Utah will return, edging out the Clippers for the final 2 playoff spots. Second round: 1. Golden State Warriors 2. Houston Rockets 3. Oklahoma City Thunder 5. San Antonio Spurs. The top 3 seeds all advance easily, though Carmelo Anthony returning to Denver, his first home in the NBA, for the first time in a playoff series is fun. San Antonio, however, shows Minnesota what playoff basketball is like, and makes it to the West semis, where the Spurs once again are quickly shown the door by a far superior Warriors team. There may be no better potential playoff series next spring than a Houston-Oklahoma City showdown, and the guess here is that the Thunder would edge it out. Let's just hope it comes to pass. Conference Finals: 1. Golden State Warriors 3. Oklahoma City Thunder. Speaking of hoping things come to pass, who wouldn't want to see this? 2 years after the Warriors and Thunder took part in what turned out to be one of the most consequential playoff series in league history on this very stage, these 2 teams somehow meet here again. This wasn't supposed to happen when Kevin Durant chose to leave Oklahoma City after losing to Golden State 2 years ago to join the Warriors as a free agent. But while this series is more competitive than the repeated drubbings the Warriors handed the Thunder a year ago, it's hard to see how Oklahoma City does more than make Golden State, the league's best team, slightly uncomfortable on its way to a fourth straight NBA Finals. NBA Finals. Cleveland Cavaliers vs. Golden State Warriors. Here we go again, the Finals, Part 4. Fortunately, we'll have the next 8 months to think of a better thing to call it. In all seriousness, though, no one can realistically expect this to end any differently unless there are injuries or some seismic trade that vaults an Eastern Conference team ahead of the Cavaliers. So, will anything be different this year? Not really. Cleveland keeps it relatively competitive, because having LeBron James ensures that will happen, but in the end this is Golden State's title to lose, and the Warriors aren't